Mary Carr once said, "A dysfunctional family is any family with more than one person in it." Hmm. I wonder what she would have to say about a murderous family.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. Ladies, how y'all feel? Fellas, y'all all right? It is Sunday, August 3rd, 2025, and your girl, obviously, as you can tell, is on the sick and shut in list this week. My voice has been going in and out because I've been sick for the last couple of days. This was originally recorded last week for last Sunday's distribution, but the original recording was stuck in draft, and then I re recorded it. Only to find out about all of that drama with Riverside. But hallelujah, the third time is the charm because it is finally going to be available. I'm going to do my damnedest to get through this episode. Like I said, I've been sick the last couple of days. I did not plan on recording another episode. So, yeah, y'all just bear with me, okay? And yes, y'all still got this week's episode dropping. It's shorter than this one, obviously, but I'm not going to slight y'all. Okay? That all right with y'all? I thought so. Now, outside of that, I am elated. Why? Because my little broke best friends have returned home. My boys were gone all summer, with their dad, but they are back and I couldn't be happier. School has started for them. So I'm happy for the normality of things. And these little jokers have grown. So I'm going to need them to, slow up a little bit on that. Like one of them is taller than me and I ain't appreciating that at all. Now, I ain't gonna keep y'all long. So, are y'all ready for tonight's episode? Baby, this one is that one that had my mouth drop all the way open. Like, I ain't even gonna lie. The level of fuckery with this damn case. I hope y'all got y'all drinks ready, honey, because this shit right here, whew. For tonight's episode, I am sipping on this Doughball whiskey. It's the birthday cake flavor. And let me tell y'all, it is good. Okay. My girl Renee recommended it. And yes, this is the same Renee that recommended all them damn cases. But you can drink it on the rocks or you can take it as shots. We actually took it as shots a couple of days ago. But yeah, I'm telling y'all, your girl ain't gonna steer you wrong. Okay. So unlike this week's episode, it's just all the way wrong. Like this steered all the way left, okay? But word to the wise, the drink is very sweet. So if you're not into, really, really sweet drinks, you might not want to try it. So y'all got y'all snacks and your drinks ready? Let's get into it. Hop on in and buckle up, baby, because we're going to take a ride back to 1974 in Kansas City, Missouri to the Prospect subdivision. Listen, y'all, we're going to need a full tank of gas on this one. Okay. We about to be taking some rides. Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it. This week's case involves Elton Gray, victim, Sandy Shannon, victim, Catherine Allen, victim, James Bell, victim, Pablo Gomez, victim, Nola White III, victim and murderer, Angela Hunter, surviving victim, Angela Monroe, Terry's baby mama and victim, Nelia Harris, victim, Anna Ewing, victim, Patricia Butler, victim, Sheila McKenzie, victim, Darcy Williams, victim, Carmen Hunt, victim, Claudette Juniel, victim, Aaliyah Howard, surviving victim, Montague Ashline, victim, And the infamous murderer of the week, or should I say murderers, Janice Blair, Walter Blair, Warnetta Blair, Nola White III, Diamond Blair, Nola White IV, and Terry Blair. Listen, I told y'all to buckle up. I told y'all we was gonna need a full tank of gas. Y'all thought I was playing. Terry Anthony Blair was born September 16th, 1961 in Kansas City, Missouri to Janice Blair. His father was pretty much a deadbeat and was never in his life. Like they didn't even mention that man's name. Like homie bailed at conception pretty much. But Terry came from a very big family, 6 girls and 4 boys. So his mama was popping out babies like Henny Penny. But she had a little bit of help. She had her husband, Elton Gray, to help take care of her and all them damn kids. Now, Elton was well respected in them streets, but they weren't living like the Joneses or anything like that. They were more like the Bundys. And when I say the Bundys, I mean Al and Peggy Bundy financially and Ted Bundy in every other aspect. According to Terry, he had a normal childhood, but he and his brothers would steal things to survive, like clothes and shoes, even food. So, how that equates to a normal childhood, I don't know. But clearly, there was nothing normal about this family. Terry grew up in the Prospect Avenue area of Kansas City, Missouri. The Prospect Avenue neighborhood was a poverty stricken area with lots of drugs and violence and everything in between, including prostitution. And Terry was exposed to all of this. He grew up seeing these things on a regular, not just, in the neighborhood, but in his own home. At just 17 years old, Terry experienced his first close, up close and personal encounter of violence. Now, like I said, Janice and Elton had been together for a while to the point that they were considered common law. They didn't actually go legally get married, but they were considered common law marriage. And common law basically means the law does not recognize you as husband and wife because, you didn't sign any paperwork. But at the same time, you're not listed as that special friend in the obituary either. I'm sorry, I'm clowning. Anyway, Elton and Janice have been together for a good little minute, like some years. And August 16th, 1978, Janice and her common law husband Elton, who Terry referred to as his stepdad, they were leaving their apartment on Chestnut Street around 12:30 in the morning. Now, Elton was supposedly a drug dealer. I'm saying supposedly because there's no exact confirmation on that, and the infamous ones will not be spreading false information on individuals, even if they are. I don't care if they are just powder at this point. If they are maggot food, I'm not spreading that. Okay, so I'm going to say allegedly, but I can honestly believe that he was just based on everything that's going down with this family. You know, so I don't know if Janice was mad that she didn't get no drugs or if she just decided that she was sick of this nigga or what. But she pulls a gun out of her bag and right there in front of her 17-year-old son, she shoots Elton in the head. His body drops in the middle of the hallway and Janice takes off, leaving her son there with his stepdad, bleeding out like a stuck pig. So Terry calls 911 and they take Elton to the hospital where, of course, he's pronounced dead. Janice still has her gun and she goes near the area of 24th and Prospect. And the cops come out and they see her, waving her gun everywhere. They're trying to get her to drop it. And she's screaming about how her nephew is being held at gunpoint by some deranged man across the street. So the cops are, looking around like, well, what the fuck she see this at? And they're radioing their people who confirm there is no nephew being held at gunpoint, obviously. So when they tell her this, she finally drops the gun and they take her into custody. I can only imagine as a child watching the only man that helped raise me because my own damn daddy ran out on my mama just get shot in front of me. But here's the really fucked up thing. So Janice is arrested and charged with Elton's murder, right? But she doesn't go to prison. Yeah, y'all heard right. No prison time. See, Janice had some type of mental illness. Now, it didn't say what it was exactly, but whatever the mental illness was, it was enough that her attorney got her 5 years of probation. Even the prosecutor, who ironically could not remember exactly what happened with that case, thought that it was a bit unusual that she didn't have to do any time. But I mean, she didn't. Instead, she got to go home and kick it at the crib back on Chestnut Street. And Terry is a witness to this at only 17 years old. Like, talk about traumatized. But then a couple of months later, it only gets worse because Terry's older brother, Walter, decides that he wants to follow in mommy's footsteps. Walter Blair Jr. was born September 29th, 1962, to Janice Blair and Walter Blair Sr. He was the older brother of Terry, and he and Terry were very close. He was about a year older and was just as fucked up as the rest of his family. Right after Terry had turned 17, about 6 months after their mother had killed their stepfather, Walter, who was only 18 years old, decided that he wanted to go and rob somebody. So on January 15th, 1979, Walter sees a girl by the name of Sandy Shannon and decides, hey, I'm going to rob her. Now, I guess things kind of took a turn for the worse, and maybe Sandy got to be a little too combative or she fought back. But even with witnesses seeing it, Walter takes a shotgun and shoots her in the back. He takes her body and throws it into a snowbank. And eventually, someone finds her. And of course, the police are called. So the witnesses tell the cops who did it. And on January 22nd, 1979, Walter Blair gets arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He gets charged with robbery as well as assault, and he gets taken to the Jackson County Jail. Now, while he's in the jail waiting for his trial, he meets this guy by the name of Larry Jackson. Now, Larry, although he wasn't a murderer, he was just as sick. Larry was in the cell next to Walter because he had raped a college student named Catherine Joe Allen. Catherine Joe Allen was born October 10th, 1957, to Thomas J. Allen and Reba Hardcastle Bird in Kansas City, Missouri. She had one sister, Patty Mandina. She attended Northeast High School, where she was a cheerleader and a member of the band prior to her graduating in 1975. Now, Catherine was also very involved in the church. She had been a member of the United Methodist Church since she was like 11 years old. She was also a campfire girl, which is like a Girl Scout kind of thing. She was very educated, very pretty, very smart, and she loved her education. She had gotten an associate's degree in arts from Penn Valley College in 1977, and she then decided to go to the Kansas City Art Institute to continue her education. She was a senior at Kansas City Art Institute when she ran across Larry Jackson. Now, Catherine had a boyfriend, but when she ran across Larry, he didn't give a damn about any of that. On April 2nd, 1979, he rapes her and he brutally assaulted her and just leaves her with the trauma of what she just experienced. And she goes to the police and she tells them everything that happened, and Larry gets arrested. And that's how he ends up in the cell next to Walter. So Larry is telling Walter about everything and what happened. And he's like, man, this bitch about to testify against me. She's trying to have me go away for a long time. I can't have that. And, he's like, listen, man, I just want to get rid of her. And despite Walter only being 18, he's got quite the reputation for himself. Like, people know who he is in them streets. So Larry asks Walter, dig this. If I give you $2,000, would you take care of this chick for me? Like, silence her permanently? And Walter's like, hell yeah. But, how he gonna do that when he's also stuck in jail? Well, it just so happens that Walter gets extremely lucky because the charges against him are dropped because the witnesses that saw him shoot Sandy, they're too scared to testify. So Walter gets a blessing in disguise and the charges get dropped and he's released from jail on July 16th, 1979. And this is great for Larry because now he got somebody that's going to be on the outside that can get to Catherine. And, Walter knows this and is going to take full advantage of it. And he did. Larry and him are talking on the phone while Larry is locked up. And Larry's, talking to him like, hey, you still going to handle that thing for me? And Walter's like, yeah, but you know what? It's going to cost you a little bit more than originally discussed. Now, I'm wondering if the calls were monitored and recorded back then because Larry was still in jail. So, how were they able to speak so freely over the phone? and just talk about this shit. Like, y'all are talking about killing somebody. How? At any rate, Walter and Larry get to bargaining, and after about a month of going back and forth, they end up agreeing to Larry paying $6,000 to Walter to take out Catherine. Now, how he was going to get that money while Larry was still locked up, I don't know, but they agreed. Now, now that he's got the amount that he wants, Walter can go ahead and get the job done, right? So on August 19th, 1979, Walter goes to Catherine Joe's apartment and breaks into her house by sneaking in through the window. And there he sees Catherine and her boyfriend. They're lying on a mattress in the living room. And he wakes both of them up and they're like freaking out, please don't hurt us. Please don't hurt us. Like they're crying. Walter snatches Catherine up and yokes her up out of the apartment, leaving her boyfriend behind. She's begging for her life. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And he takes her to this vacant parking lot that's like 4 blocks from his house, hits her in the head with a brick. Now, according to what he told police, he's telling her the entire time, "Yo, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm not gonna hurt you." But supposedly, she charged at him when he pulled out a gun and tried to disarm him. And the gun goes off, and he ends up shooting her quite a few times. So he runs off, leaving her body there at like 6:30 in the morning. And then he calls Larry and he's like, "Yo, job's done." So it doesn't take long for Catherine to be located because shit, she's a young white college student in a very rough neighborhood. Not to mention her boyfriend done called the cops when she got snatched up out of there. And so it gets linked back to Walter that he's the one that kills her. And on the morning of August 22nd, 1979, Walter Blair gets arrested again. The cops come up in his apartment and they cuff him. They take him to the precinct and they start asking him questions. What happened? How do you know this girl? And he's telling them, say, man, I got this guy that I was locked up with named Larry. He was saying that he didn't want her to testify and that he was trying to get rid of her. He offered me a few $1,000s. And at first, I was going to do it. But then I heard him talking about getting some people to throw bombs in her house. And, I ain't want to mess up the neighborhood or nothing like that. So I went over there to grab her, but look, dude, I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was trying to keep her safe. I told her and her boyfriend that I wasn't gonna hurt her. But the autopsy definitely showed different. Catherine was shot in the head, the chest, and the wrist and was nude from the waist up. So, does that sound like an accident or a flesh wound to y'all? I don't think so. So then he tells the cops how he was only supposed to get $2,000, but Larry enticed him with so much more money. And he's just like, listen, I needed the money. And he then proceeds to say, I kept telling her everything was going to be cool. I told her boyfriend I ain't want to hurt her, but she charged at me. She came at me and she tried to grab my gun, and then the gun went off and it shot her. But it was like a superficial wound to her face, so it wasn't anything serious. Like when I left her, she was still alive. I mean, yeah, she was hurting a little bit, but she was still alive. Nigga, shooting somebody in the face is not a superficial wound. Meanwhile, the cops are videotaping everything, and eventually he confesses and he tells them that, he shot her when she came after his gun. So he gets charged with capital murder. But then he turns around and recants his entire confession. And he tells them, yeah, I lied. I never shot nobody. The only reason I said that is because the dude had a rifle to my head. I wasn't even there. I was at home working on my autobiography. Now, this is where I start to think.
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
Y'all, the way I hollered when he said he was working on his autobiography. And I'm just like, yo, are you serious? Nigga, don't nobody know you. You 18. What could you possibly have to write about? Your life is not that interesting. But then again, you do got some shit in your family that ain't normal. So, I mean, hey. But anyway, the cops hear this and they're like, okay, this dude is really something else. And of course, y'all know they don't fall for that crap. I mean, who would? But Walter was going to try to do whatever he could to stay out of prison. He told the authorities, "The only reason that I claim that I killed somebody is because I got threatened to confess by the guy that was interviewing me. He told me that if I confessed, he would cut me a deal if I testified against Larry." Now, do y'all really think anybody believed him? No. Walter ends up going to trial and he has an all white jury. Because remember, this is back in like 1980. The Honorable Judge Richard P. Sprinkle presided over the case. I was watching this interview and they were clowning his name. They was like Dick P. Sprinkle. That's funny. But on October 16th, 1980, Walter Blair is found guilty of capital murder of Catherine Joe Allen. The jury wasted no time in sentencing him. They were basically trying to give his ass the death sentence. Now, he was officially sentenced to death on January 14th, 1981. And you want to know the funny, but like not so funny thing? Larry Jackson never got convicted of raping Catherine. He ended up going to prison for a whole different situation. He committed murder and ended up in prison. So essentially, Walter killed this girl for nothing because Larry got off for that crime. So Walter gets sent to the Potosi Correctional Institute where he is put on death row. And of course, he files an appeal with the Missouri Supreme Court, but it gets dismissed August 31st, 1982. He ended up filing another appeal on September 24th, 1990, but that also got denied. Now, I got to give it to him. Walter fought to the very end to try to keep from being executed. He was scheduled to be executed July 21st, 1993, and on July 13th, about a week before, he submitted this affidavit saying that he hired this guy by the name of Ernest Jones to kill Catherine. Now, if you remember, I told you that there were witnesses to Catherine being killed, and Ernest Jones was one of those witnesses. And for a second, it looked like it was going to work because six other people came forward and said that Ernest was the one that did it and that he framed Walter to make him look like he was guilty. The only problem with this was is that Ernest couldn't testify because he got killed in 1990 before Walter was executed. So Walter's idea was like, all right, I can just pin this murder on this nigga. He ain't allowed to testify and dispute what's being said. And Walter had a gang of people willing to back that up too. But the prosecution had their mind set. Their mind was made up. They had a 7-page letter that Walter wrote in 1979, and it was clear that he was the one that did it. Plus, homeboy forgot that he told the police where to find Catherine's driver's license and checkbook and all of that other stuff that he had taken, which they found under a sewer near his house. So the prosecution was like, yeah, we not about to have no switch ups. His ass is going to be executed. And they meant that because on July 21st, 1993, after declining his last meal and sitting his ass in silence, not giving any final words, Walter Blair gets that good old $43 cocktail and he's executed by lethal injection at the Potosi Correctional Center, which is going to become a very popular place for the Blair family. Now, you would think that seeing your mother and brother both get in trouble with the law, you would think that it would kind of deter you from committing crimes, right? I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that mama had gotten away with murder and Walter had gotten away with murder. Well, one of the murders. But big sis Wernetta decided she was going to press her luck too. Wernetta U. Blair was born to Janice Billy Blair in May of 1956. I don't have an exact date, but that was the year. Wernetta was just like the rest of her family and liked to push it to the extreme when it came to law enforcement. Her first serious crime was abusing an elderly man that was also disabled. He had snitched to the police about her prior, and I was trying so hard to find out why, but I couldn't find anything on it. What I did find out is that he snitched and she submerged his body in scalding hot water so much that he suffered burns. But outside of that, she had a husband, Nola White III, and 3 kids, all of whom you will hear about momentarily. Wernetta's kids were some interesting children, to say. And much like Janice, she exposed her kids to some foolishness. Wernetta kept that same energy. And she and her husband, Nola, they owned an upholstery store in Kansas City and employed a man by the name of James Bell. Now, there's not much that I could find on James Bell, but again, he worked at the upholstery shop that Nola owned. And I'm not sure if he had a wife or kids, but what he did have was a $10,000 life insurance policy, and Wernetta and Nola wanted it. So they concocted a plan to kill James. Renetta Nola and her cousin Nathaniel Williams stabbed James more than 30 times, killing him and leaving his body to be found on his apartment floor on Prospect Avenue. Now, James had a next door neighbor that saw them running and called 911. So the police found his body September 27th, 1980, and not soon after, Juanetta and her husband are arrested. Now, initially, Nathaniel wasn't mentioned, but Juanetta found out she was pregnant again and was facing some serious time. Y'all, she straight snitched on Nathaniel and was trying to dime Nola out too. But because they were married in the state of Missouri, she couldn't testify against him, so she did the next best thing. She filed for a divorce. But that didn't go too good since she was carrying his baby. And on May 3rd, 1984, she pleads guilty to second-degree murder and she has to get ready for trial. Y'all, I swear the Blair family had more chances than Monopoly. So the woman that had witnessed them kill James, she decided that she wasn't going to testify because she had been shot as well. And then on top of that, she had a couple of little pets. Well, the pets had their heads cut off and dropped off at her doorstep. So, yeah, that was enough to convince her to not testify. And I don't blame her. You cut the head of my animal off and then you drop it off at my doorstep. I ain't saying shit. I ain't seen Jack. I don't know nothing. I ain't speaking. And so, for whatever reason, because she was pregnant, Wernetta didn't end up going to jail. Now, her husband, Nola, did. In 1984, he gets sentenced to 12 years in prison after he pled guilty to second degree murder. And then on top of that, Wernetta just decided that she was going to divorce him and she got with her new boo, Pablo P. Gomez, a Cuban drug dealer. So again, it is rumored being the key word here, that Pablo was a drug dealer, but not actually confirmed. And a lot of the articles did support that he was like, I believe it considering, Renetta was on that shit real heavy back then. And they lived together at an apartment complex on East 30th Street. And it was there that Renetta, or rather Pablo, found out that Renetta had a problem, an addiction problem. And so he's like, "Yeah, you not getting no more of my work." And she's pissed off. She's like, "Oh, word, you gonna cut off my supply? Really? Oh, okay, bet." So y'all know how the Blairs roll. One night in December of 1989, Renetta decides that she gonna call up her homeboy and they bum rush Pablo. They tie him up, they bound him with a belt, and then they gagged him by stuffing a sponge in his mouth and just started whooping his ass. They are beating him. They are wanting those drugs so bad. So bad that not only did they beat this man, but they killed him. Y'all, they had started cutting his head, his hands, all kind of stuff. And when they realized what they had done and they were like, "Oh shit, we took it too far," they covered his head with a pillowcase, wrapped him in a blanket, and then left. Went to an apartment complex that was close by, and they just went and got high. So the police discovered his body that was bound and still gagged, and this time Wernetta couldn't get away. They arrest her and her friend, and Wernetta tells them, "We ain't mean to kill him. We was just trying to get drugs. I ain't realized that we had hurt him like that." Mm, that crackhead strength is something else, ain't it? So she and her friends are charged, and in August of 1990, Renetta pleads guilty to second degree murder. But she didn't get off this time, though. She got sentenced to 10 years. And another Blair family member decided that it was time to shine after his mama, his brother, and his sister. This time, Terry's brother William says, "Well, my turn." Now, William Blair was born January 5th, 1974, to Janice Blair as well, obviously. Not sure if he and Terry had the same daddy, but I'm going to assume not. He was fairly young when he committed his crimes, and boy, did he commit a lot of them. In December of 1991, at just 16 years old, he committed first-degree robbery and got a 15-year sentence. He does majority of his sentence, and on September 28th, 2003, he's released from prison. So here's where you're gonna be like, okay, what the fuck? He gets out at damn near the end of September, right? Between December 3rd, 2003 and January 8th, 2004, literally a month and 5 days, this man commits 88 acts of armed robbery, assault, and armed criminal action. And I mean, him and his boys was doing some foul shit. They would fire warning shots, beat people's asses, threaten to kill employees and customers, all of that. 88 robberies though? 88? That's that's like you're in a matter of a month and 5 days, you commit at least two crimes a day, two and a half a day. Like you're barely 30. Are you making up for lost time? Are you on a mission? Did you have a goal of 100? Like, sir, what is the reason for that, huh?
What's the reason?
On June 23rd, 2009, Diamond and his friend Paul McDaniel decided to go and rob a gas station. So Diamond tells Paul, look, if we gonna do this, we need to steal a car first. I don't want to get seen in my car, so we gotta steal one. So they link up with their friend Albert Holly and they get dropped off to 36th in Baltimore. Now, unfortunately for them, it started raining, so they find an area close by to kind of stay dry. They're looking around, and Diamond sees a car that they can steal. So they're looking for something to break into the car, but they come up short. Hold up. How you gonna say we need to steal a car and not have anything to steal the car with? Boy, this boy make a wall look smart. I swear. Homie got the IQ of a fruit fly. All of them do. So Albert calls his girlfriend to see if she had something, or like a screwdriver or something like that. And the Three Stooges weren't really having too much luck and decided to just call it a night and go home. But then Montague Ashline pulls up in his car and they're thinking, perfect, we can take this one. So Montague goes inside the apartment complex and was in there for a little bit. And the three of them waited until he came back out. And when he does walk back out, they grab him up by his shirt and point a gun at his chest and demand everything in his pockets. And Montague's trying to tell him, listen, man, I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing. I can't help you, man. But they wasn't trying to hear it. They arguing and struggling with him. And then, pop, Montague gets shot in the chest by Diamond. The bullet ended up going through Montague's chest and into Paul's arm, his own homeboy. They all take off running, leaving Montague to suffer and die alone. Now, when they ran, Elton called his girlfriend and told her, hey, we on the way. So Paul was kind of like side eyeing a bit because how you gonna run to your girlfriend's house like that? That to him was a little suspect, but he doesn't think much of it because, he's been shot. So they all get to his girlfriend's house and they're trying to calm down. And once things are chill after a while, they go their own way. So Paul goes to the hospital to get his gunshot wound treated. And while he's being treated for his gunshot wound, the police are called a little after midnight and they see Montague laid out on the ground dead. So they start collecting evidence, fingerprints, disposed cigarette butts, and the video footage that the apartment manager gave them. Now, y'all know the video footage can be a little grainy at times, but the cops couldn't really see who the attackers were at first. But what they could see is that one of the three that killed this man had hurt himself. Looking for a book that resonates with your soul? Well, look no further than Author K, a master ghostwriter, storyteller, and author who weaves tales across multiple genres, from heartwarming romance to gripping urban horror. Whether you're searching for a contemporary romance that sweeps you off your feet or street lit that reflects the realities of life, Kay's writing speaks to the heart of every reader. Her work also passionately highlights the Black Lives Matter movement, bridging narratives that matter. Dive into the journey of discovery, empowerment, romance, and connection through Kay's incredible reads. Visit www.mizk.com today and dive into a world of unforgettable tales. That's www.mzkaye.com. Your next favorite book is just a click away. So they start calling hospitals to see if anyone had come in regarding a gunshot wound. And they find out that good old Paul McDaniel had come in 2 hours after Montague had been shot. So they go right to Paul and they're interrogating him, but they don't really get much. But then, as luck would have it, all of those fingerprints and cigarette butts that they collected at the scene, they ran the DNA on it and it came back to match Paul. Oh, baby, the cops hit the lottery. And then on top of that, a few weeks later, on July 5th, 2009, they stopped a truck that matched the description of one that was seen at a separate homicide that Diamond was suspected of. And at the time that they stopped the truck, he was actually in it with a 38 revolver. So they go back and they holler at Paul again and they're like, listen, Paul, we got the footage. We know you didn't shoot yourself. We know you didn't shoot nobody. You got shot yourself. But it would be best if you tell us who shot you. That way you're not in prison for the rest of your life over something that you didn't do. And Paul thinks about it and he thinks and thinks and thinks. Yeah, I was watching Blue's Clues with my kid earlier. Sorry. But Paul tells them that Diamond was the one that shot Montague and, essentially in turn shot him. Damn, he sold his boy out quick. Well, the cops hear this and they go and arrest Diamond. So Paul makes a deal, and the deal is for him to testify to everything at the trial, which he does. They even played audio recordings of Diamond in the jail talking to his people about how the gun that the cops found was his, but how he was going to put it on somebody else. Yo, you are stupid. Why do criminals insist on talking about shit like that in jail when you know the calls are recorded? It even tells you that the calls are recorded. Like, uh, I don't know at what point they started recording the calls, but around the 2009-ish time frame, I'm pretty sure that they were. So this boy clearly got the IQ of a fruit fly and makes a wall look smart, because why would you talk about that on the jail phone and not think that they weren't gonna use this against you? So the jury ultimately finds Diamond Blair guilty. And on April 12th, 2013, Diamond was sentenced to life in prison on the felony murder charge, life in prison on the robbery charge, and 50 years in prison on each of the counts of armed criminal action. And he had a few of them joints because he was already on probation, so they made him serve them consecutive. Now, the sentence ended up being amended somewhat to where it was two life sentences plus 100 years. But I mean, ultimately, homie is still going to be in prison for the rest of his life. Right now he's chilling at the Crossroads Correctional Center. What a loving family, right? Ah, baby, we just now getting to the meat and potatoes of it. All of these family members that were committing murders back to back to back, that was just the appetizer. Oh, we at the main entree now, y'all. We haven't even gotten to the most vicious murderer. I shouldn't say victim, but the most vicious murderer of them all. Now, let's go back just a few years from Diamond and Winetta and Walter and Clifford and Daniel and all of them. And let's talk about the prospect killer, Terry Blair. So, as I mentioned earlier, Terry Anthony Blair was born September 16th, 1961, in Kansas City, Missouri, to Janice Blair, aka the Mother of the Year. He was the fourth of 10 kids. There were six girls and four boys. Siblings were Netta, William, Walter, Clifford, Sylvia, Donna, Lysandra, Daniel. There was one other one that was not mentioned. So hopefully they didn't have a criminal record either. I don't think Lysandra or Donna or Sylvia did either. Now that I think about it, they weren't mentioned. But Terry may have felt like he came from a normal childhood, but normal it was not. Okay. To him, normal was stealing clothes and shoes and food to survive. Like, I'm not sure whose normal that is, but nah. So, like I said earlier, his father was never in his life, but he did have a stepfather around for a while before his mama, pop out him, Elton Gray. But I guess in her defense, she did have a mental health issue. Can't get the specifics of it, but it was a situation where the prosecution thought it would do more harm than good to charge her. Now, Terry didn't finish high school because he felt like it just wasn't for him. So, right before his senior year, which is, when you're literally about to finish, Terry drops out of Lincoln High School. Now, I'm not sure if he got a job or what, but I can only assume with the family dynamics the way that they were, he was probably hustling or, into some type of illegal activity. And I mean, it would kind of be understandable because he did have two sons before the age of 21. He had Terry Jr. and he had Marcel Johnson with his girlfriend, Angela Monroe. Now, Angela was a few years younger. She was 19 and she had a part time job at Captain D's. I mean, at least her job was legitimate. But they had two sons together. And around the time that all of this went down, she was actually pregnant with their third child. But she wasn't necessarily the best mother. And because of it, CPS had stepped in and taken their boys. But Terry didn't know that originally, which has me wondering how involved he was with his kids or if he was just like, shooting the club up and then disappearing. I don't know. So Terry gets a letter in the mail from CPS telling him that he missed a hearing for the kids. And when he sees the letter, he's like, okay, what the hell? So he decides that he's going to go confront Angela about it, but like he does it in kind of a sneaky way. Now, Angela still lived with her mother, which is understandable because she's 19 years old with two kids and a third on the way. So when Terry goes to see her, he's like, "Hey, what's going on? How the boys? Where they at?" And Angela, she plays it real cool. She tells him, "Oh, they good. They in my mama house." Now, Terry already knows that this is a lie because he got the letter that came to his house. And at one point, Angela and him were actually living together. But she had, later on moved in with her mama. And I mean, I would too, because I wouldn't want to look at that face every day. I'm sorry, but your boy looked like he snuck on Earth. Like, I've never understood why these women be boohooing over these niggas that look like okay, so y'all remember the movie Men in Black? And there was like this picture or whatever of this really skinny dude holding a pitchfork. Well, it wasn't even a picture. It wasn't even a picture. It was an actual person. He looked like the tan version of that dude that was in the house with his wife, and he was holding the pitchfork. And he looks like him. Like he looked like he legit snuck on Earth. The nigga is ugly as shit. I'm sorry. I know they say that there's somebody for everybody, but damn, her standards was low. I couldn't imagine having that looking down on me while he on top. Just nope. One kid, let alone three. Oof. But the heart wants what the heart wants, I guess. So Terry's pissed off and everything because he knows that she's lying to him. And then he finds out that Angela's been selling that Hot Pocket all around the neighborhood. Now remember, they live in the Prospect Avenue area, which is an area that's, surrounded by drugs and violence, gangs, prostitution, all of that. And that prostitution was a real problem for Terry. Like he hated prostitutes. Like he really hated them. So the fact that his baby mama, like his wife of all women, is out here hoeing around, he had a big problem with that. Especially since she was 7 months pregnant with their third baby. Like you supposed to be laid up right now, kicking back, waiting on your water to break. And Terry was treating her like Mister from The Color Purple. Like, y'all remember when Nettie was like, "Silly, my boys wants their supper, the kitchen needs a cleaning, the cows need a milking, my shirt needs a mending, my pants need a fixing, my shoes need a shining, my children need a feeding. And when you're good and tired, I'm gonna climb on top of you and do my business before you can say amen." That's exactly how Terry was acting. But see, Angela wasn't no silly. She was more like Suge Avery. Baby, she was letting that thing loose, okay? Which only pissed Terry off more. So on May 15th, 1982, he confronted her about it. And he's, coming at her like, "Yo, why the fuck you out here selling yourself? Like, why you hoeing around? You pregnant. You can't be doing that." Now, they do say that pregnant pussy is the best pussy. I'm just saying, it's extra wet, whatever. I've heard. I'm just saying. Anyway. So, he's going off on her. He's in her face and all of that. And she's telling him, "Move from around me with that Apollo." She's trying to get away from him. But he ends up picking up a stick and just starts beating her with it, like hard. Like she's trying so hard to protect her baby. But Unfortunately, she dies, and so does the baby. Now, initially, he tries to make it seem like someone else killed her, but eventually he confesses to the murder, and in November of 1992, he goes to trial. Now, it's not a long trial at all. November 10th, 1992, he gets convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. I'm noticing that there's a trend here where all of the Blair family members that commit murder get convicted of second degree, charged with second degree, all of that. So he gets 25 years in prison, gets carted off to Potosi Correctional Center. And while he's in prison, he has 67 conduct violations for various acts like fighting, assault, disobeying orders, contraband, being in restricted areas, all of that. I guess they, felt like, okay, hey, it wasn't as bad as it seemed. And he, was a good model inmate despite the 67 fucking violations. But Terry does 21 of the 25-year sentence before he gets paroled to the halfway house in May of 2002. Now, he has to stay in the halfway house for a while, but he ended up going right back into the prison because he got caught up and tested positive for weed. So he tries to run, but he gets caught and sent right back to prison for another year. He gets out again on May 20th, 2003, and he goes back to that halfway house to finish out the rest of his term. So he was supposed to stay there until August 8th of 2003, but his hatred for prostitutes was so strong, like really, really strong, to the point that when he saw Sandra Reed, he couldn't help himself. June 30th, 2003, Terry's out roaming the streets when he comes across Sandra Reed. Now, Sandra was really about that street life, unfortunately. She was a known prostitute that had many charges. Between 1975 and 2003, she had like 9 charges of prostitution. So God only knows how many went unreported. But she was convicted of prostitution, drug possession, everything. And when she meets Terry, he finds out that she's a prostitute and he tells her that he got some money, she willing to give him a little something, something. So she agrees to it. And that's the last time that she's seen alive until her body is found badly decomposed. Now, January 21st, 2004, Terry is officially on parole. So a month later, he arrives at the halfway house, or rather, he leaves the halfway house. I'm sorry. A month later, he leaves the halfway house with a warrant issued for his arrest because he left early. But he's hiding out with different family members, like mainly his mother and his sister. While he's living with his mother, there was this pimp named T that lived upstairs from her, and a lot of the prostitutes would sleep there. They would do their little business there, whatever. And so Terry, he would see the stuff that was going on up there. So he would either stay there or he would go to his grandmother's house on Olive Street. Now, if y'all remember, that's where his brother took Angela and made her, give him head and he fucked her up real bad. Now, July 14th, 2004, there's a maintenance worker that's in the complex and he's doing work orders when he finds a woman's body in between a building and some bushes on 23rd Street. And it turned out that that was the body of Anna Ewing. Anna Ewing was a mother of 6, and a lot of people remembered her for her smile and her giving heart. Unfortunately, Anna was like a lot of the people in the area. She had been in prison and had been in the jail system off and on since she was basically a teenager. She had gotten arrested at 17 for larceny. She had other charges of drug possession, prostitution, all of that. She had a drug charge in 1998 where she got probation and ended up being put in prison and had to do 3 years. Now, initially, the cops thought that she had died of a drug overdose because of the fact that she had, known to partake in drugs prior. But once they did that autopsy a couple of months later, they noticed that her body had been found in the same area as some of the other bodies that had begun to pop up. Who were those other bodies? Y'all will find out shortly. Anna had been strangled and was naked with the exception of a bra and her dress around her neck. Now, she was a prostitute in the area also, and when they found her, she was bloody, she was covered in mud, she was bruised up real bad. She died at the age of 42. Now, her family had a burial for her July 23rd at the E.R. Morris Funeral Chapel, but other than that, it wasn't much on her. When the autopsy was performed, it was discovered that there was DNA evidence on her that matched Terry. Of course, they found that out later. Well, after Anna, about a month later, August 18th of 2004, Terry crosses paths with Aaliyah Howard. Now, when Terry meets Aaliyah, he has this whole thought process that she's just a horrible person and that she's out here prostituting and selling herself much like, the other women. So he approaches her and he's like, "Hey, I got a little bit of money if you're willing to spend some time with me." And she agrees. And once he gets her alone, he's telling her how filthy she is and how he hates women like her, how she's a whore, and all of that. He chokes her to the point that she is unconscious and he's assaulting her. Now, luckily for her, she's able to get away because he left her for dead, but she actually did survive. It wasn't until a few weeks later that he sees her walking down the street and he's confused because he's looking like, "I know I killed that bitch." And Aaliyah sees him and she's shook because how is this man just walking around like it's nothing? It's crazy to her. But she hightails it up out of there. And, he keeps turning and staring at her like, "Damn, I know I killed her. I know I killed her." And he knows that she recognizes him. But, unfortunately, other women wouldn't be so lucky. So I guess that was his thing like, all right, she got away, but I need to make sure don't nobody else fake dead and actually survive. September 2nd, 2004, a local Kansas City Police Department unit is literally flagged down by a maintenance worker for an apartment complex. And the maintenance man tells the cop, "Hey, there's this funky ass smell coming from this garage. I think y'all need to check it out because I ain't going nowhere near it." So the officer gets over there and they open the garage and they see this body that, it looks like she hasn't been there too long. They can tell it's a female. But then when they get closer, they see another body laying underneath it. And they like, "What the fuck?" So Sergeant Doug Niemeyer from the Kansas City Police Department gets a phone call about it. And it's a man that was like, "Hey, I was out here mowing the grass and there's this property that's abandoned. I think you need to come check it out because there's a very strong odor coming from it. I ain't fucking with it." So he's dispatched out there and he finds two bodies in the garage stacked on top of each other. Both of them are black females. The one that's on the bottom had been in decomposition severely. The one that's on the top wasn't as bad, but definitely dead. So they fingerprint the bodies and they find out that it's the bodies of 45-year-old Patricia Wilson Butler and 38-year-old Sheila McKenzie. Patricia Ann Wilson Butler was born October 30th, 1958 in Kansas City, Missouri. Now her body had been decomposing for quite a while. Patricia Wilson Butler was a beautiful woman born to Lily Wilson. There's not much on her background or childhood, but I did find out that she met her husband, Kevin Butler, and married him March 30th, 1992. She had three kids, one of whom was a daughter named Latricia. And poor Patricia really had a hard time in life and was trying to get her life back on track after doing some things that, she wasn't necessarily proud of. She was born to Sam and Lily Wilson in California, and she was actually raised in Enid, Oklahoma, before she had moved to Kansas City, Missouri, a few years, before. I think she had been there for like 4 years before her death. She had been arrested in the early 90s for solicitation and drug possession and all of that. She disappeared August 14th, and her family actually tried to file a missing persons report on her, but for whatever reason, the police wouldn't take it. And I'm assuming it's because of her background, as far as her, being a prostitute. Maybe they felt like, oh, she'll just pop up later. And that, she was just out roaming the streets. So for whatever reason, they did not take her family seriously. Sheila D. McKenzie was a 38-year-old mother of two teenage sons. She too had a record, and I'm noticing that this is a trend with Terry. With most prostitutes, they do typically have a few things on their record. They don't necessarily have, the squeaky clean background. Sheila had been in trouble a few times for possession and, of course, prostitution. And like I said, she was a mother of two teenage sons, and she would frequent the Prospect Avenue area. So when Terry came across her, he took her to his house, or to a house at 2167 Montgall Avenue, where he raped her and killed her. You know what? I don't necessarily know if it was rape because I don't know if he lured her there under the ruse of buying the Hot Pocket. So I'm going to retract that and just say that he assaulted her before he killed her. But there was some, bodily fluid. The police did end up finding his semen on her, and she had his DNA underneath her fingernails. Now, there wasn't much evidence as far as Patricia. Patricia's body had been there longer. The status of her decomposition was far more severe than Sheila's. So, with Patricia, she didn't have his DNA on her. But what Terry did after he killed Sheila is he went back to that house and put Sheila's body on top of Patricia's. And again, this is where I start to think.
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
See, Patricia didn't have any of his DNA on her, so Terry could have gotten away with that one. But where he fucked up was he put Sheila's body on top of Patricia, meaning that he had to have known where her body was buried or, at least placed in order for him to put Sheila there. Now, Sheila's DNA, of course, was on him, and there was semen found on Patricia, but it wasn't a match for Terry. But because of the fact that he put Sheila's body on top of Patricia's, it ended up getting him in trouble. So when the cops find the two bodies, they start doing their investigation and they're looking in the areas and everything. And they notice that there's blood inside of the house, but that the two women were put into the garage. So they were like, okay, they didn't die here. They died in the house and then were taken out here. On September 3rd, 2004, 911 gets a call from this anonymous caller. And guess who it is? Terry. He says, I want to report a dead body. And the dispatcher's like, where? So Terry tells them on 29th and Park. And the dispatcher confirms the address, and Terry tells them, yep, in the backyard at the northeast house on the corner. And the dispatcher confirms the northeast house on the corner. He says, yep. So the dispatcher asks him, well, how do you know it's a dead body there? And Terry responds, I put it there. And the dispatcher asks him, well, what's your name? But he curved that question quick. Oh no, have them look up under the branch. And the dispatcher, was a little confused. Look up under what? And Terry gives further instructions. The bushes by the alley. And the dispatcher says, look up under the bushes by the alley. Terry tells her, yep. And the dispatcher asks him, well, how do you know the body's there? Terry literally tells the dispatcher, because I put the two on 25th and Montgall and I put that there. I mean, damn. Like, he literally told you that he put the body there. So, like, come on. So the dispatcher has to get all the information that they can. And they're like, sir, who is the person? And Terry says, I don't know her name. Dispatch still needs more info, so they start probing. Where'd you meet her at? Oh, she's just a prostitute. And dispatch is taking all of this down and dispatching units out. Oh, she was a prostitute. So was the other two that was killed on 25th and Montgall. They were prostitutes. Oh, so you killed them also? Yup. And then he just hangs up. Now that was on September 3rd. Literally the next day on September 4th, 2004 at 6:51 p.m., 911 gets another phone call from the same telephone number. So when the cops go to the call, sure enough, there's a body that's back there and it is badly decomposed. It's basically just skeletal remains. So immediately they rule it as a homicide because one, they've got this anonymous phone call, and then two, the body is concealed. So that lets them know, okay, somebody purposely killed this woman and hid her body. And that was the body of Carmen Hunt. And the very next day, Terry calls 911 again, and this time he says, "Hey, I called y'all the other day before to report somebody dead. I got two more I need to report." Homie was talking to them like he was reporting a dead deer on the side of the road or something. He tells him, "Yeah, there's one body that's at 24th and Prospect in the alley right next to the gate by the U-Haul place, and it's covered by black vinyl." And then he tells him, "Oh, by the way, the other body is at 27th and Olive, and it's covered with some brush and pillows. They were prostitutes, and I had to kill them because they were scum and a disgrace." So the dispatch is like, "Well, hey, can you give me your name?" He was like, "No, but I can tell you that the body that's over there at 27th and Olive, it ain't, it's been there for about 6 weeks. And the one that's over there at 24th and Prospect, been there for about a week. You can smell her." And once again, dispatch asks, "Hey, do you know their names?" Terry's like, "Nope, I just killed them because they were prostitutes." The dispatcher had asked him, Were you the guy that called yesterday about the bodies at 26 in Montgall?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's me." And they asked him, "Well, are there any other victims?" And he was like, "Well, the body that y'all found at 23rd and Prospect, I did that too. But I mean, they found her a long time ago. So I guess not." So the units get called out, and one unit, of course, goes to 24th and Prospect. And that's where they find the body of Darcy Williams, who had been there for about a week. Darcy Irene Williams was born June 4th, 1979, to Carlton Williams Sr. and Ruby Irene Porter Williams. Her biological mother was an alcoholic, and her biological father was a drug addict. So Darcy was actually adopted as a child and had been trying to track down her biological family. Now, in addition to her being adopted, she was also biracial. She had gotten adopted by a white family who ran the local Kansas City Opry. She grew up in the church and she spoke to her family on the regular. And she had even told them that, she was trying to track down her biological parents. She was nicknamed Smiles, and she was always literally smiling, so it made sense. She was a mom to a beautiful baby boy, Robert Andrew Williams, that she gave birth to in 1998. Unfortunately, he died of SIDS after a month. She did have two brothers and two sisters that I could find. I know one of them was named Carol Elizabeth Lakey. Now, she had come across Terry, and he killed her by strangulation. The cops then go to 27th and Olive, and they find the body of Claudette Juniel, who had been there for about 6 weeks. Now, when Terry called 911, he called them from a cell phone that was a 911 only number, which means basically he didn't have a SIM card. But y'all know with cell phones nowadays, you cannot have service and still be able to dial 911 in case of an emergency. Now, he had stolen the phone from a maintenance company close by. So the cops go back and they listen to the call from September 4th, and they can hear kids in the background. And then there's also a train horn. Okay, so later on, that's going to be relevant, but just thought that I would throw that out there, okay, about the train and everything and the kids. So 2 days later, on September 6th, 2004, Terry comes across Cherry Chadbourne. Now, Cherry and him had known each other because earlier that summer, he had paid her for sex. And he's telling her that, she a good one and that she's not a prostitute and everything. And he can tell by looking at her hot pocket that she's clean. He had initially snatched her up because he had planned on killing her, but then he realized that, she wasn't like the other ones that he had snatched off the streets. And he told her, I'm gonna kill all the prostitutes one by one because they're the scum of the earth. And Cherry's listening, and she's like, "Yeah, this nigga is crazy. I need to get the fuck away from this dude." So she manages to get away from him, but he literally kind of started stalking her. And one day he comes up to her and he's like, "Hey, I just saw you last week. You were wearing that red shirt with the blue jeans and the green shoes." And she's like, "What the fuck? Is this man stalking me? Like, how does he know what I had on last week?" And he just like grins at her like it's nothing with his Jeepers Creepers looking ass. And he tells her, "Yeah, I told you I'm gonna kill all these prostitutes. I killed my wife because she became a prostitute." So when Cherry got the opportunity to get away, she flagged down a police officer and she tells him, "Listen, there is a guy by the name of Terry Blair, and he said he gonna kill off all the prostitutes one by one. I know that there's these bodies that's been popping up around here lately. I'm just letting y'all know. I think it's him." And the police took her serious because 4 days later, on September 10th, 2004, Terry is at his homegirl's house and they're sitting there and they chilling and they watching TV. And while they're sitting watching TV, the news comes on, and there's a picture of Terry that comes on the news screen. And it says that he's listed as a person of interest in a string of murders that's been committed along the Prospect Corridor. Now, Terry's friend, she sees this. Hell, both of them see it. Terry sees it, and he tries to, act like it ain't shit. And Terry's friend sees it, and she's smart. In that moment, she shrugged it off and pretended that she didn't recognize him. She was like, "Man, that's crazy." So, Terry's feeling pressure and he's ready to go. He like, "All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here." Soon as that boy left, his friend called the cops and was just like, "Hey, the dude that y'all was looking for, yeah, he was just here. The man that y'all showed on the TV is in my house. His name is Terry Blair." So the police take that tip and, Terry is gone, of course. But he knows that they're gonna come to his mama's house. So he ends up leaving his mom's house and coming back to his friend's house that night, and he hides in her garage. Stupid. Again, why are these the dumbest criminals I have ever seen? But the police show up and they find Terry, and he's hiding between the rear of her car and the back of the garage, like chilling, like they ain't gonna see his black ass. So they arrest him and they read him his Miranda rights and everything and all of that. And he says, "All right, I'm gonna tell y'all what happened. I'm gonna talk to y'all." So they take him to the police station and they're showing him pictures of all of the women, and he's just like, "Oh, I don't know any of them. I didn't come in contact with any of them. I wasn't there." And I mean, he is real nonchalant. And they ask him, "Well, did you make any 911 calls?" And he tells them, "Nah." And they ask him, "Mr. Blair, where were you September 3rd and September 4th?" But he plays it cool. "Oh, I was helping my mama move out of her apartment and I was staying with my sister." Now, remember, I told y'all that the investigators had listened to those 911 calls. Well, where his mama stayed and where his sister stayed were close proximity to each other. His sister stayed at 1340 West Bluff, and his mom stayed at 2449 Prospect. She lived on Prospect Avenue. So when they heard the train horn, they knew that it was Terry because Terry's sister lived in a duplex that was near the railroad tracks. So all they had to do was look at the train records and the GPS coordinates, and they saw that there was a train that came through there, and it blew its horn at 6:53 p.m., whereas Terry called 911 at 6:51 p.m. And then they also saw that there was a playground near the duplex, so they knew Terry was the guy that they were looking for. But Terry was adamant that he had never had sex with any of them. He was just like, I mean, I saw Darcy Williams like 10 or 11 days before, but I didn't do anything with her. I did pay this woman, named Peaches for sex back in like 2002, but that was it. But, the cops ain't believing nothing that he's saying. They know they got him. So, September 14th, 2004, Terry Blair is charged with murder, but his troubles are far from over because even after he's been arrested, they're still finding more bodies. September 20th, 2004, a man tells the police that he found a body in the alley off of 8th Street and Floor Avenue. Her body was discovered and they realized it was 34-year-old Nelia Harris. Nelia Harris was born in California and she was raised in Enid, Oklahoma. She had moved to Kansas City, Missouri about 4 or 5 years before her untimely demise. I mentioned a little bit about her earlier. She had a few run ins with the law, possession, prostitution, obstructing an officer. But she was very talented. She had a welder's license, and according to her cousin Helen Mater, she could cook her ass off too. But things kind of took a turn for the worse and she fell on hard times. And in the short time that she had been in Kansas City, she had turned to prostitution. And that's how she met Terry. He had propositioned her for sex. And then the next thing you know, he kills her. And her body had been back there for a very long time. Psst. Hey, Raleigh, North Carolina. Are you in the market for a new vehicle? Look no further than Southern State Hyundai of Raleigh. Located at 2511 Wake Forest Road, they have a fantastic selection of the latest Hyundai models just waiting for you. Their dedicated team is available to provide you with top notch service and unbeatable deals. And don't forget, ask for Tony McLaughlin. He's ready to help you find the perfect car for your needs. Visit Southern State Hyundai of Raleigh today, where quality meets affordability. That's Southern State Hyundai of Raleigh, located at 2511 Wake Forest Road. And tell them the infamous one sent you. So once Terry was in custody, another person comes forward and tells law enforcement about how he assaulted her and how she got away. Now, they would not give her name out. I tried looking through several documents, but the only things that I could find in the appeals and the court documents was that there was a second person that came forward. On October 15th, 2004, Terry Blair is charged with 8 counts of first degree murder, 1 count of first degree assault, and 3 counts of forcible rape. Sadly, there were a lot of other victims that Terry was tied to that he supposedly raped but did not kill. And I didn't mention them in this episode because of the fact that it was not actually proven. It was a lot of alleged rapes, and I wanted to do more research on that before I brought their names into it. But he gets ready for trial. And of course, the prosecution is wanting the death penalty. I mean, why not? All of this stuff that he's done. The presiding judge was John O'Malley, and Terry was represented by Randall Schlegel. Terry was very adamant that he was innocent. He said, "Listen, I don't want the death penalty. I didn't do anything. I'll agree to waive my rights to a jury trial if you take the death penalty off the table. If you really feel like I'm guilty, just take the death penalty off the table. I'll waive the rights to a jury trial. Now, it didn't help that the TV series, The First 48, had aired an episode where basically they, had already convicted him before the trial even began. I think the episode was called A Killer Calls. Y'all know The First 48. Y'all know how they do. And, the whole basis of the show is to solve the crime within 48 hours, because typically within the first 48 hours, that's when, evidence and everything is the hottest, where you can get the most leads, et cetera, et cetera. And if it goes past 48 hours, not to say that it can't be solved, but a lot of times it makes it more difficult. So the first 48 had aired their episode, A Killer Calls, where basically, it kind of looked like they already had him convicted before the trial even began. So much so that the judge put a gag order in place because of the amount of publicity that the trial was receiving. And Terry definitely had something to say about it. He wrote a letter to the judge. Now, I'm going to read it to y'all. It's a little long, but I'm going to read it to y'all because the letter was quite actually good. Now, this was written January 9th of 2005, and it says, Honorable Judge O'Malley, I'm writing you in regards to the gag order, my attorney Randall Schlegel, and my constitutional right to receive a fair and impartial hearing and trial of the charges brought against me. The gag order was ordered as of December 8th, 2004, due to the extensive publicity in my charges by both the press and television media. That publicity has already imperiled the possibility for a fair trial. In violation of the court order, this publicity again was very much extensive, but now through the cable television media. This publicity focused upon information that also would be barred at any trial: prior convictions, speculation, improper opinions, evidence of bad character, and guilt by association. On January 6, 2005, a television media show, The First 48, an A&E network show, aired an episode, A Serial Killer Calls. This show aired graphic video images of the victims' bodies, the homicide detectives, and their families. The investigation into these charges, statements about criminal records, past convictions, testimony of alleged victims, the contents of the 911 caller confessions to the murders that detectives alleged to be Terry Blair, the nature of physical evidence, opinion as to guilt, credibility, and character. Extrajudicial statements that contains a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing a trial was made, and there is reasonable likelihood that the show, The First 48, could affect the judgment of the jury. The show have been shown twice already and may probably be shown many more times before a trial. The show images could eventually, if not already, harm the court's ability to pick an impartial jury. It will be very difficult to set these images aside. The show, detectives' comments, we believe Blair is the one, the images of the bodies, victims' testimonies all impede defendant right to a fair trial. Media coverage already was an issue in this case and now aired on cable television all over Missouri. Police detective assisted television media to make extrajudicial statements that any reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by public communication by allowing their investigation, interviews, and evidence to be aired through audio communication over cable television before my trial, and knowing that said statements and information will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudiciary trial in this matter. And gag violation of the court ordered gag order, which is in full force. I have not received any discovery information in my own behalf, but the whole world has knowledge to all the evidence, testimony, and investigators' opinion in this matter. Detective statements as to they believe that Terry Blair is the one who is killing these women, that Terry Blair is the 911 caller, and calling me a serial killer, and I have not been convicted of any crime is a violation of my constitutional right to a fair trial. And their opinion is not facts. The show was as if I was on trial, and convicted on cable TV through the detective's comments, the alleged victims' testimonies, the graphics showing of victims' bodies, and all evidence collected or assumed. Evidentiary law, my past conviction for homicide should not have been stated as detective's evidence to show that the defendant is more likely to have committed the current crime. Juries are more likely to wrongfully convict if they are confronted with evidence of prior misconduct. Jurors tend to overvalue such evidence and, in some cases, are so outraged by it that they convict the defendants in the new case, even in the absence of sufficient proof. I was denied a preliminary hearing due to the grand jury indictment, and by law, none of the evidence could be discussed pertaining to these charges. But the show was staged as the preliminary hearing and trial and received not only attention throughout the state of Missouri, but worldwide notoriety. I'm also in concern of my attorney, Randall Schlegel, who I feel has been prejudiced after viewing the show The First 48. He disregarded my request to file a motion in my behalf due to the continued publicity. The gag order violation, the showing of state evidence, and the fact that I cannot receive a fair trial under the Constitution. Anywhere his statements was that I'm right, but these women didn't deserve to die. I now feel that I'm being denied the right to counsel also, so I'm asking the court to hold this letter as my motion and reason to ask that the court, as the accused, to dismiss due to these grounds and to the gag order. So basically, Terry's like, hey, y'all already got me set up for failure before I even have my trial. That's not fair. And I mean, that's true. But at the end of the day, you could sit up here and say, oh, well, yeah, this wasn't fair because the show was aired before I had my trial, which is true. The show being aired did kind of give a negative image and, kind of convicted him before the trial even started. But at the same time, there was a whole second letter that Terry wrote to the investigators where he confessed to everything. And in that letter, he said, I killed all these women, or maybe my family did, who knows? And, he even talked about, well, if I get off, I'm going to be a better man. And, I did this, I did that. I put their bodies here, I put their bodies there. So it's like, okay, you admitted to it. So how is your attorney being prejudiced when you confess to your attorney, hey, I did this? Yeah, the first 48 airing the episode did kind of, mess you up before you could even really get started. But at the end of the day, that's them. That's the network. They put the show out there. And, at the end of the day, your Lord of the Rings looking ass did it. The fact that he thought that he was gonna get off from 8 murders is hilarious to me. Like, really, dude? Okay. So Terry ends up waiving his rights to a jury trial, and the judge is overseeing his bench trial. Now, 2 of the murder charges ended up getting dropped, and that was for Sandra Reed and Nelia Harris because there wasn't enough evidence. But there was definitely enough evidence for the other 6. They also dropped the rape charges on some of the cases because even though his DNA was found on them, because of their profession, so to speak, they couldn't guarantee that it was an assault rather than consensual sex. So during the trial, Terry tried to say that it wasn't him that called 911, but they brought in an expert specialist that was able to basically tell that it was a black man that had called, and they pinpointed it to Terry, especially with the location evidence to back it up. Remember the whole train blowing of the horn and all of that. Plus, on the stand, he said that they deserved it, and like he was sneering in some of the victims' families' faces. But then you write this dumbass letter talking about, oh, I was convicted before the trial even started, but yet you're mocking the family. Make that make sense. So, because Terry Blair wasn't found guilty until March 27th of 2008, he got 6 life sentences with no possibility of parole for the murders, and he was sent back to Potosi Correctional Center in Mineral Point, Missouri, where the rest of his family had, at one point frequented. In fact, some of his family was still there. Diamond Blair actually requested to be transferred because he didn't want to be anywhere near his uncle. And of course, Terry appealed his conviction, but the appeal was denied by the Missouri Court of Appeals in August of 2009. He stayed in prison until May 11th, 2024, where he died at the ripe old age of 62. I'm trying to figure out if he died from natural causes or not, but he definitely took that long dirt nap. There was an autopsy that was ordered, but nothing had been publicized as to how he died as of yet. His mother, Janice, she passed away November 1st, 2005 at Kindred Hospital. His sister, Wernetta, she living her best life in Missouri right now. And of course, Walter is dead. Diamond is doing life, and the list goes on and on. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of the Blair family, the family that makes the Manson family look like seventh heaven. And now it is time for Fair or Foul, where we look at the justice system to determine if the sentence that was given was indeed fair, or if it was just some bullshit that's gonna have us sitting back saying, what the fuck? Throw the whole damn family away. I mean, the entire fucking family. Like, this is some Hatfield and McCoys amongst each other kind of shit. Like, throw the entire fucking family away, please and thank you. Like, this is one of those situations where Final Destination bloodlines need to be put into place and just take them out from the root because damn. Like, it was just a dark cloud over this entire family. The sentencing that they all received, Walters was definitely fair. He's burning and baking in the eternal easy bake oven right now. Like, what you did was beyond reproach. It was vile. It was heinous. It was outright disturbing. You deserve to burn for all of eternity, hotter than jalapeno juice on a herpes inflamed dick. And then with Renetta's sentencing, the fact that she got away with murder the first time, that's insane to me. And then it just kind of seemed like, her husband ended up getting his karma because he only did what, 12 years? And then you get shot by your own son. But for her to get such a light sentence is crazy. But I mean, hell, the apple don't fall far from the tree because look at her mama. She did the same shit. Janice got away with murder because of some mental health issues. Now, granted, she only murdered once. Renetta's ass was like, yep, I'm going to go try my luck again. And then she only gets 10 years for that because she was high. That's not an excuse. Like, at the end of the day, you still took a life. Granted, the life was a drug dealer's life, alleged. But, at the end of the day, you only got 10 years for killing somebody. Like, I don't know if it was just a time frame back then, but now your ass would have like 50, 60, 70 years or life or death penalty or whatever. For her to get such a life sentence and she took two lives, not one, but two, like you lucky as fuck. And it's not to say, that a person's mental health shouldn't be considered when it comes to Janice, because it does. But if it's really that severe, then she needs to be in a mental institution. If it was that severe, how was she able to raise 10 children? How was she able to continue to care for children after she shot and killed her husband? They should have been removed up out of there. She should have been put in some type of institution or something. For the most part, I'm gonna say that everybody's sentencing was fair with the exception of Wernetta and Janice and Nola. I really felt like the first time that she committed murder, that should have been it. Maybe if Wernetta had actually been sentenced the first time and the witnesses weren't scared to speak, then she wouldn't have been able to commit murder the second time. And Terry, him getting, 6 life sentences is absolutely fair because this walking dead zombie looking motherfucker definitely deserved it. To be so cocky and to have the attitude that you got and look the way you do and to just treat these women like they're just nothing. Yes, they had rocky past. Yes, they were selling their bodies, but it didn't mean that they weren't still people at the end of the day. It didn't mean that they didn't have families. A lot of these women had children, parents looking for them. And for you to just go and try to wipe them off the planet like they were nothing, and at the end of the day, your ugly ass couldn't do nothing but pay for sex, you killed your children's mother because she was out here hustling trying to make money. How about you get your bum ass up and go get a job? How about your Flavor Flav granddaddy in the face looking ass do something other than sitting on your ass, allowing other people to take care of you? Obviously, you weren't in a better situation than her because the children were in the state's custody versus with you. Because if anything, if you're not working and she out there hustling, working at Captain D's and selling her hot pocket and shit, you could at least be at home taking care of the kids. But no, your ass was out here deciding, I'm going to kill off every prostitute. I don't like prostitutes. And you killed your own children's mother because she was out there doing what she had to do to survive, to take care of her and her kids while you were doing God knows what. They were out there doing what they had to do. Meanwhile, you were letting bitches take care of you. You had nothing and you wanted to try to feel like you were something. So you took away lives from women that you knew were struggling to try to make yourself feel better. Like I said, the entire fucking family can go. Trust me, you will not be missed. God only knows how many more bloodlines have been affected from this mess. God only knows how many more branches of this tree that there are that are just as fucked up. But hopefully, the ones that are left can learn from this situation. Hopefully it's a situation where they're sitting back and they're like, okay, damn, I'm connected. You know what? Now that I think about it, I wonder if Michelle Blair, the one that killed her kids and put them in the deep freezer, I wonder if she's somehow connected to them in some kind of way or related. Like it would make total sense because she just as fucked up as they are. But, hopefully the bloodline that's left and the branches of the tree that are left is in a situation where they're like, okay, we don't want to be shit like them. But honestly, I doubt it. That is all for this week's episode of the Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. You can follow the show on the following streams on Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. That's a number one, by the way, not spelled out. And you can leave a review there. On X, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. On Facebook, you can join the private discussion group, the Infamous Ones discussion group, but please be advised, if you don't answer the questions, you ain't getting in. It's that simple. But once you get in, we chop it up in there. Come on in, sit down, take a seat, tell us what you sipping on. Y'all know we talk about everything up in there. We post stories, all of that. Plus, I do my little giveaways and stuff when I'm feeling nice. Also, we have the Facebook Messenger chat, Stay Mobbing. So make sure y'all join that as well. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and so on and so on. So leave a review. It only takes a few seconds. Those reviews matter. And of course, we're going to get to a couple of them. The first review comes from Spotify on the episode The Champ is Here about You Ugly. I'm sorry, You Thomas Riley. It comes from Stephanie Prince and it says 5 stars and then some. I love the way you tell each story. This dude right here was on a whole different type of crazy. Your Thomas should have been short for You Know I'm Crazy. Keep up the fantastic work, Queen. A new and loyal listener. Thank you, Stephanie Pooh. I love the fact that I can entertain y'all while I'm giving y'all the facts. I know I be going overboard sometimes with my jokes and, talking shit about people. But listen, that's a talent to be able to clown and still deliver the facts and everything. So thank you for that. And yes, you are 100% correct. His name should have been, I'm crazy, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm ugly, I'm trifling. He was just, oh, good God. Just get what, throw him away too. The next review comes from Spotify as well, from Louise Hardison on the That's My Baby episode, which was the episode where old girl Tasha stole baby LeJean and raised him as her own. And it says, this is my first time listening to your podcast, which I enjoyed listening to this story. Tasha was beyond disturbed and crazy about how she took the life of the mother of a child she stole. I don't understand how her grandmother didn't contact Tasha's mother to tell her that her daughter was in Texas with a baby. Tasha's mother was wrong for accepting her daughter's explanation of how she miraculously had a child who is now 5 months old. I look forward to catching up on other episodes. Yes, Louise, thank you, boo. I don't understand that bothered me so much. Like, there was no communication with the family. Like, how did your granddaughter just pop up one day and say, "Hey, grandma, I'm here. I got a baby," and you don't even think to call her mama? Or how does her mama not call and say, "Hey, ma, my daughter is missing. If she calls you, let me know." Something. Because then as the grandma, you can be like, "Oh, well, yeah, baby, I talked to her. She said, she was coming here." But that communication was just weird to me. And then for your daughter to be gone for 3 months and then all of a sudden she got this big ass baby, like the math ain't mathing. Come on. But thank you, Louise. I appreciate it. Get your episodes in, boo. I love it when I see reviews like this where y'all say y'all are binging. That's what's up. I'm glad and I hope y'all enjoy. Remember, guys, October is the live show for Charlotte, North Carolina. Tickets are on sale on Eventbrite right now at $50 a piece. So come out, enjoy some unlimited alcohol. There's going to be a great performance from my brother Seven the Panther, alcohol from Tipsy Sips, plus a featured vendor, Risha Tanay, with her new book, My Rainbow is Here. And of course, a really great case. So get your tickets now. They're $50 for all of that. Absolutely. Oh, and I have a really big announcement for you all. So, with the way that the podcast is growing, it really gives me great pleasure to announce that the show is expanding. I know y'all are like, what? But yes, the Infamous Ones has been so wonderful these last 2 years. But there's one thing that I really wanted to bring to the forefront, and that is the amount of people of color that are missing. Every day I go on social media and I see a little boy or a little girl or somebody of color that's missing. And there's so much information that's not being shared. There's so much information that I feel like needs to be told to help bring our people home. When you go and you turn on the news, it's rare that you see a story about a person of color missing. You always hear about the Beckys and the Emilys and, all of that coming up missing, and how the entire world just shuts down when a person that is melanin deficient comes missing. And while we're sympathetic and while we want them to return safe, we don't get that same attention. We don't get that same respect. It's rare that when I see an Amber Alert, anytime I see an Amber Alert, it's maybe 90%, you know, white and 10% other. And again, it's not to say that nobody that they don't, that they deserve to be taken or they deserve to be missing, because they don't. We want every child brought home. But at the same time, we want that same type of attention. And so I have decided to launch The Missing Ones. The Missing One will air its first episode on a very close hometown case that I'm aware of at the end of this month. This is a case that's close to me. This is a case from my one from my home. So I'm really excited to air it. Like I said, it'll air its first episode at the end of this month. Now, naturally, I want to make sure that I'm being respectful of other shows, because I do realize that other podcasts drop their episodes on certain days. But listen, it's only so much I can do, not trying to bogart on a particular podcast day. At the end of the day, there's enough for all of us to eat. There's enough podcasts. You can listen to 5, 6, 7, 8 episodes. If you like me, I listen to at least, I want to say, 7 different podcasters in a week while still doing mine. I listen to them when I'm writing my books. I listen to them when I'm driving. I listen to them, when I'm cleaning the kitchen or something, or cooking or whatever. And, of course, still manage to do my episodes. Some people feel a certain type of way, when another podcast comes out on their day. I don't care. Because at the end of the day, you're going to listen to who you're going to listen to. You know what I'm saying? So it's only so much that I can do. So the missing ones will drop on Saturdays. So you'll still get the infamous ones on Sundays, but the missing ones will drop on Saturdays, with the very first episode debuting Saturday, August 30th. So get ready for that. I hope you guys are excited. I know I am. The first episode is going to be amazing. I'm going to drop the cover art for it later in the discussion group after this episode airs. So hopefully you guys will support that as much as you support this. It's still true crime and it's still focusing on us. So I hope you all will support. I know a few people have asked about the YouTube channel. I haven't gotten the number of subscribers and followers on there yet that I wanted. The goal was 50, but unfortunately, we haven't reached it. So, not really going to focus on that right now. Once I do hit 50 followers and subscribers or more, I'll start dropping special content on there. If you do want to follow and you haven't already, the channel is the Infamous Ones Dash One on YouTube. Okay, that's THEINFAMOUSONES dash one, number one. Also, remember, we have the Steady Mob and Messenger chat now, where y'all can chop it up just like y'all do in the group. If you want to support the show, or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning that liquor we've been sipping on, and I ain't even gonna front, I've been sipping on the dough balls, whiskey, the birthday cake, but I did switch to Theraflu because listen, I gotta get my voice back because yeah, I need it. Okay. I gotta have my voice. I gotta be A1. But if you feel in the spirit that we, have been on tonight, click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on and hit listener support to subscribe. Subscription start at 99¢. Gives you access to stuff that, listeners don't get from behind the scenes and all of that. You can also donate via Cash App at $ infamous one pod. That's $ INFAMOUSONEPOD. Donations go toward new recording equipment because I have already gone through a lot of equipment. It also goes towards documentation. It goes towards JPay to speak with the inmates. It goes towards a lot of that stuff. And of course, shout out to those that donate for the snacks. Appreciate y'all. If you have a case that you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire about ad space, or if you want to leave a review, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's INFAMOUS onepod@gmail.com. And once again, people, please share, share, share. This podcast is growing by the day, and it means the world to me. So please keep sharing. Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl, Kay. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see y'all next week with a brand new episode. Stay mobbing, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.